The tower is a mysterious structure that appears suddenly, and while anyone can enter, no one can leave. People enter to chase their dreams, whether it's wealth, fame, or the pure thrill of hunting monsters. But for most, these ambitions are little more than daydreams. True success in the tower is rare, and the rest become trapped in monotony and obsession. Yet, for every dreamer, there is always a chance that fate may intervene. One such dreamer is a boy named Kim Gong-ja, who desperately wants to become an emperor. But it's not just about wishing, as what matters is how brave or desperate one is. Kim Gong-ja possesses an extraordinary skill, a legendary S+ rank ability that allows him to come back to life whenever he is killed. However, such power comes at a cost. One must die to use it. When the Tower Ranker Flame Emperor kills Kim Gong-ja, he has no choice but to activate the skill. From that moment, every death sends him 24 hours back in time. Using this power, Kim Gong-ja begins exploring the tower, uncovering the secrets of top rankers, meeting allies, confronting foes, and exploiting his knowledge of the future. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy the full story of Kim Gong-ja's journey through the tower. Breaking news spreads across Babylon about the Black Dragon Guild, who boldly challenges the 40th floor of the tower to prove their strength as a top-tier guild. Despite their confidence, they return defeated once again. The reason for their failure lies in the hands of the #1 ranked hunter, the Flame Emperor, who clears the floor boss all by himself and sets a new record. The news broadcast shows the Flame Emperor during an interview where he suddenly takes the microphone from the reporter and complains about people calling him by his nickname instead of his real name. He continues to grumble about finding whoever started the name in the first place. At the same time, a young man watches the news from his small room, admiring how freely the Flame Emperor speaks his mind. He scrolls through a site called HunterNet, filled with comments criticizing the Flame Emperor's attitude. But instead of joining them, the young man repeatedly types that he wants to be like the Flame Emperor too. He feels that if this world were a novel, the Flame Emperor would be the main character, while he would only be a nameless extra. Meanwhile, the reporter continues to describe the Flame Emperor, whose real name is Yoon Soo-ha. He reminds the audience that Yoon Soo-ha awakened as a hunter in his early 20s and defeated a boss monster that the Black Dragon Guild failed to conquer for 10 years, doing it in less than a month. His achievements make him a living legend. When asked to share a phrase of encouragement for aspiring hunters, Yoon Soo-ha simply declares that those who will succeed, but anyone who stands in his way will be killed. With that, he walks off, ending the broadcast. The young man slams his tablet in frustration, feeling as if he himself has been ignored. He wishes he had even one decent skill like the Flame Emperor. Living in a cramped studio and being mocked as an F-class hunter without any ability makes him feel hopeless. Tears fall as he cries out his desire to be like the Flame Emperor or to have his skill for just once in his life. At that moment, a bright light shines from above. He looks up and recognizes a sight he has only seen in countless videos. A glowing card floats down, and a system message appears before his eyes. The tower acknowledges his deep and unsightly envy and rewards him with a skill card. Though the tone of the system feels different from what he remembers, he doesn't care because he has finally received a skill, and it is a gold S rank card. He eagerly grabs it, and the description appears. The title reads, Unsightly Envy. The effect states that the skill activates automatically upon death, allowing him to copy one ability from whoever kills him. He cannot copy from the same person twice, and the copied skill is chosen at random. But to activate it, he must die. He stares at the card in disbelief, wondering what kind of twisted power he has just obtained. The tower appears in the world without warning, standing tall enough to be seen from anywhere on Earth. Those who have nothing to lose are the first to enter, and they discover that each floor is filled with monsters from other worlds. Among them, a few are chosen by the tower and granted special skills. When rumors spread about this, countless people flock to the tower, hoping to hunt monsters and gain power for themselves. During a live interview, a man claims he witnessed the Flame Emperor in battle, saying he moved as if he were dancing with his flaming spear. At a nearby food stall, a young man watches the broadcast and asks the stall owner to change the channel. The owner insists it's interesting and asks if the young man dislikes the Flame Emperor. The young man explains that it's not about dislike. There are people who live like the Flame Emperor, and there are people like him, stuck with terrible luck and a miserable life, though the stall owner doesn't believe him. The young man then mutters that he actually received an S+ skill yesterday, but using it would kill him. He grows more frustrated because he cannot reveal his skill to the Hunter Association. On his way home, the system interface flashes before him, showing the day's Hunter rankings. Flame Emperor at first, Black Dragon in second, and Viper in third. A sudden headache strikes him, followed by a strange noise from a nearby alley. Curious, he peeks in and spots the Flame Emperor confronting the Saintess. The Flame Emperor accuses her of pretending to be innocent, revealing that he poisoned the drink she just had with Basilisk's stomach acid, the same poison she had planned to use on him. He claims that without his skill, he would already be dead. The bottle shatters on the ground, hissing with acid. The Saintess insists it is a misunderstanding and that she only wanted to clear the tower with him as a team. The Flame Emperor responds coldly that he once thought so too, but realizes he was wrong. Hidden nearby, the young man listens in shock, realizing that all the news about the Flame Emperor and Saintess dating is false. Moments later, the Flame Emperor pins the Saintess by the neck against the wall. He tells her to nod for answers and warns her not to lie, saying he has a lie detection skill. If she answers honestly, he might give her the antidote. He then asks if the witch from the Black Dragon Guild sent her to kill him. The Saintess nods weakly, and the Flame Emperor burns her alive. Her screams echo through the alley, and the young man trembles in horror, realizing that the world's beloved hero is actually a cold murderer. Panicking, the young man tries to flee, but he steps on a broken bottle. The Flame Emperor turns, spotting him, and remarks that he thought he had chased away all the rats, but seems to have missed one. Terrified, the young man locks eyes with him and feels an icy dread. The Flame Emperor's gaze is sharp and cruel, the eyes of someone who has killed many before. He stumbles and falls to the ground as the Flame Emperor approaches. Desperate, he pleads for his life, saying he didn't see anything. The Flame Emperor doesn't believe him and demands the truth, threatening to kill him like the Saintess. He accuses the young man of being sent by the Black Dragon Guild. As the young man trembles, he wonders if this ruthless person is really the same hero admired by the world. He shouts that the Flame Emperor should use his lie detection skill to see he's telling the truth. But the Flame Emperor calmly replies that he has no such skill. The young man freezes, realizing that the Flame Emperor killed the Saintess without any proof, only on suspicion. The Flame Emperor coldly states that the Saintess was truly plotting to poison him, and if he hadn't killed her today, she would have killed him tomorrow. The young man feels nervous as the Flame Emperor says he already knows the truth and can see his innocence because he asked about the lie detection skill. The young man feels relieved and thankful, believing he will be spared. However, the Flame Emperor suddenly places his hand on the young man's head and burns him to death, saying he should just die and revealing his name to be Yoon Suha. As a child, the young man's headmaster had told him that his name, Gongja, which means the Korean name for Confucius, signifies that he should become a great person like the Flame Emperor. But in the present, Gongja does not want to die this way and is filled with pain and regret. A system interface then appears, showing that Gongja has died. Because of his death, the skill requirements are fulfilled, and the system proceeds to copy Yoon Suha's skill completely. A skill card appears before him, and he grabs it. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself back in his room. To his shock, he sees the news announcing that the Flame Emperor has cleared the 40th floor entirely on his own, a feat that even the Black Dragon Guild has never achieved. Gongja feels confused and wonders what is happening. At first, Gongja doesn't understand how he ends up back home. He remembers dying, yet now he is in his room again. As he listens to the news, he realizes that everything is still the same as the previous day. The events are repeating as if nothing has changed, which makes him confused. He decides to check his skill card. It looks the same as before, but he starts to worry that he might have copied a skill from Suha Yu, the Flame Emperor, when he died. While he is thinking about it, a system message appears before him. It is the skill Time Traveler's Clock. The message explains that when he dies, the skill activates and sends him 24 hours back in time. His memories and skills remain the same, so he remembers everything that happened before. The message also warns him that the higher the skill rank, the heavier the penalty. This explains the danger behind it and why he is now back in the past. Everything begins to make sense to Gongja. He realizes the secret behind Suha's power. Suha killed Miss Saint because he had seen her poison him the day before. With his time travel ability, he must have gone back in time and killed her first to protect himself. Now Gongja understands why Suha killed him too. Suha must have thought Gongja was a future threat and decided to eliminate him. When Gongja listens to the news again, he hears Suha declaring that he will kill anyone who tries to match his strength. This time, Gongja feels different. He is ready for Suha and determined to face him no matter what happens. Gongja lives in a city built for hunters, a place where people train to fight monsters and challenge the tower. As he thinks about Suha, he suddenly hears that a fire has broken out in the tower. He immediately suspects that Suha caused it to destroy evidence of his crimes, including the murder of Miss Saint. The citizens don't know this and rush to help put out the fire. Gongja knows the fire isn't just an accident. Authorities and guilds begin to work together to control it. The Witch of the Black Dragon Guild and a master alchemist join in to help. The alchemist suggests sending a team inside to check for survivors, but a city guard tells her that no one is inside because the area was sealed 5 years ago. The tower has a grim reputation. Once someone enters, they never return. Fires like this happen often, but this one feels different to Gongja. He expects Miss Saint to appear, but she doesn't. Her absence makes him suspicious since she never misses important events. Others around him believe she is out on a date with Suha, which only confuses him more. While he waits, Suha appears, pretending not to know what caused the fire. He acts like a hero, offering to help put it out. People cheer him on, saying he will be praised for his bravery, but Gongja knows the truth. To him, Suha is just a murderer pretending to be righteous. Without hesitation, Gongja runs toward the burning tower. People try to stop him, warning him of the danger, but he ignores them. His only focus is how to kill Suha. To others, he looks reckless, but Gongja knows exactly what he's doing. Entering the fire is part of his plan. As soon as he steps into the flames, he dies. A system message appears, telling him that the skill Time Traveler's Clock has activated, sending him 24 hours back in time. When he wakes up, he is back in his room again. The system reports no penalty for his death. Gongja remains an F-Class Hunter, and he knows that his rank protects him from penalties. Still, he realizes that he is too weak to defeat Suha right now. Even if he kills Suha, Suha will just return after 24 hours, just like he did. Determined, Gongja begins forming a new plan. He recalls hearing about the day Suha first awakened his power. He calculates that he must go back 4,050 times to reach that point in time. Only then can he kill Suha before he becomes the powerful Flame Emperor. With that resolve, Gongja makes his decision. He will keep dying and traveling back again and again until he reaches the moment he can stop Suha for good. He knows the path ahead will be painful and endless, but he accepts it. No matter how many times it takes, Gongja is determined to change fate and end the Flame Emperor's reign before it begins. Gongja endures 30 more deaths than he first planned, but he finally manages to travel far enough back in time before Suha becomes the legendary figure known as the Flame Emperor. The pain and exhaustion are unbearable, yet Gongja pushes through, determined to erase Suha's dark legacy once and for all. Now, he feels it is finally his turn to become the hunter. It was 11 years ago, on May 6th. Gongja has lived this day countless times, repeating it until every action and detail are perfect. Each morning at 9 a.m., he wakes up in his small studio apartment within a building for F-Class hunters. By 3 p.m., he goes to the second-floor hunting grounds to fight slimes, just as Suha does at this time. Back then, Suha was only an F-Class hunter too, desperate for a chance to change his fate. Normally, he would gain a powerful S-Class skill a week later, the very skill that turns him into the fearsome Flame Emperor. Gongja is determined to stop that from ever happening. At around 5 p.m., Gongja moves to the 6th floor, a place too dangerous for F-Class hunters. He has already calculated that for about 30 minutes, only he and Suha will be there. This is the perfect window for his plan. When Gongja arrives, he finds Suha already fighting monsters. Everything is unfolding exactly as planned. Gongja makes himself look injured by covering his body and clothes with red slime, making it appear as though he has been badly wounded. He approaches Suha, pretending to be weak, and asks for a potion to heal himself. Suha notices his condition and asks what happened. Gongja replies that he has already fought several monsters and can no longer fight. Suha, cautious and greedy, refuses to give the potion for free. Gongja tries to negotiate. Suha first demands 20 gold, the standard price, but Gongja declines. Suha raises it to 40 gold, and Gongja still refuses. Checking his purse, Gongja finds only 60 gold left, everything he owns. He offers it all, but Suha still refuses. Instead, Suha threatens him, revealing his selfish and cruel nature. At that moment, Gongja knows there is no reasoning with him. Before Suha can attack, Gongja strikes first. In a swift motion, he draws his knife and drives it into Suha, shattering his body and ending his life. The battle ends almost instantly. Gongja kicks the corpse aside, watching as nearby monsters devour it. Then, without hesitation, he leaves the 6th floor and returns to the 1st, relieved that no one will ever know what he has done. The Flame Emperor's story ends before it ever begins. Back in the city, life continues as usual. The Blade Saint remains the only hunter strong enough to challenge the upper floors of the tower, but without Suha, no one manages to clear it again. Gongja feels a deep sense of satisfaction. He has prevented a terrible future, and the world will never know the destruction that might have been. To celebrate, he visits a local bar for a drink. As he waits for his order, an old man enters and sits nearby, ordering a simple milk drink with honey. Gongja barely notices at first, lost in thought. But when he glances at the man's face, he freezes. His eyes widen in shock as recognition sets in. The Sword Saint's real name is Marcus Callenberry. He was once famous, but after going missing for a long time, people forgot about him. During his absence, the Flame Emperor ruled as the top hunter for 11 years and became unbeatable. When Gongja finally meets Callenberry, he is shocked. He immediately realizes that the Sword Saint must possess an S-rank skill. Remembering his own power to copy skills from other hunters, Gongja wonders if he could copy Callenberry's as well, thinking it would be a huge advantage. He recalls that during the Sword Saint's disappearance, no one ever found any solid information about him. Callenberry remained a mystery, and Gongja even thinks it would have been better if he were at least half as arrogant as the Flame Emperor. As Gongja observes him, he notices Callenberry shouting at himself as if talking to someone invisible. It becomes clear that he often argues with an unseen presence, and Gongja confirms that the Sword Saint actually talks to himself. This makes him wonder if all top hunters have something wrong with them, since none of them seem normal to him. Gongja remembers reading online that the Sword Saint hates when people mention his grandchildren. The rumor says he kills anyone who brings them up. It was said that when a hunter once picked a fight with him, he ignored the provocation until his grandchildren were mentioned. Then, he attacked immediately, unable to control his rage. The word grandchildren triggers something dangerous in him. Though many people doubted the rumor, the writer insisted it was true and warned that anyone who values their life should never mention Callenberry's grandchildren. At the cafeteria, Callenberry keeps arguing with the invisible being. When he finally leaves, everyone feels relieved, whispering among themselves that he might be losing his mind. Once Gongja sees him leave, he pays his bill and follows. But when he steps outside, Callenberry is already gone. Shocked, Gongja looks around until he spots him again. His distinctive clothes make him easy to recognize. Gongja starts trailing him, curious about his mysterious skill. He believes whatever Callenberry's power is, it must be stronger than the Flame Emperor's, and he feels excited knowing he might soon copy it with his luck skill. Gongja follows the Sword Saint into the woods. Suddenly, Callenberry turns around and tells him to come out, already aware he's being followed. Gongja is stunned by how quickly he was discovered and grows nervous, knowing that if the Sword Saint kills him here, no one would ever find out. He steps out, saying he only has a request, but the Sword Saint laughs, thinking Gongja's excuse is ridiculous. He holds his sword, ready to strike, suspecting Gongja is an assassin even though he's unarmed. Gongja realizes he doesn't need to mention the forbidden word grandchildren to make the Sword Saint angry. He already seems one step away from killing him. The Sword Saint expects Gongja to approach, but Gongja hesitates. The Sword Saint, however, is not fooled and watches him sharply. Eventually, Gongja moves closer, trying to explain that he only wanted to understand why someone so ordinary-looking could call himself a first-rate assassin. But before he can finish, the Sword Saint cuts him off, warning him to be silent. He then reveals that he has a skill that shows how many people someone has killed. Gongja is stunned, realizing the Sword Saint must see the mark of his single past kill. Although he once believed his reason for that killing was justified, the truth of being seen by such a terrifying hunter makes him uneasy. Gongja tries to explain to the Sword Saint that he has a reason for the single count on his record, but the Sword Saint refuses to listen, convinced he is lying. Though Callenberry knows he has killed many himself, he insists it is nowhere near as many as Gongja has done. This confuses Gongja until the Sword Saint calmly states that he can see 4,091 kills marked on Gongja's forehead. Shocked, Gongja suddenly understands what those numbers mean. One represents the death of Yu Suha, the Flame Emperor, while the remaining 4,090 are the times he has taken his own life. The Sword Saint then demands to know if the Black Dragon's witch sent him. In that moment, Gongja realizes that Callenberry already sees him as a legendary assassin, responsible for thousands of deaths. Terrified, he gives up any thought of copying a skill and turns to flee, aware that the Sword Saint will never stop hunting him. He knows he must eventually find a way to kill the Sword Saint before being killed himself. Seeing Gongjia run without replying, the Sword Saint draws his weapon and chases after him. As the Sword Saint swings his sword at Gongjia, Gongjia narrowly dodges the attack. Seeing this, the Sword Saint becomes convinced that Gongjia must be an assassin to have avoided such a strike. The Sword Saint continues his relentless assault, forcing Gongjia to roll across the ground to escape. But soon, he finds himself trapped, with nowhere left to move. Just as he braces himself for the next blow, he hears the Sword Saint speaking again to the invisible being. It sounds as if the unseen presence is advising him to capture Gongjia and interrogate him first. However, the Sword Saint rejects the idea, saying he will handle Gongjia on his own and does not need any interference. Gongjia listens carefully. The voice and conversation sound too real to be simple madness. He starts to suspect that the Sword Saint's talking might be linked to a skill, perhaps telepathy. If that is true, it could mean the Sword Saint is communicating with others and might already be reporting him to the Hunter Association. Gongjia imagines himself being hunted down, arrested, and publicly executed in Babylon Plaza. Realizing he might die within a day if he does nothing, Gongjia decides to provoke the Sword Saint instead. He gets to his feet and deliberately mentions the Sword Saint's grandchildren. The Sword Saint's expression instantly darkens, but Gongjia keeps speaking, pressing on with more words about them. Before he can finish, the Sword Saint cuts him down in a single motion, killing him instantly. As Gongjia dies, he watches the Sword Saint's swift and powerful attack with awe and envy, wishing he could have that same skill. The moment his death is confirmed, his status window appears, and several skill cards are displayed before him. To his surprise, he sees that the Sword Saint has no S+ ranked skill at all. His strength comes only from his body and the abilities he already possesses. Still, Gongjia must choose one. Unlike the Flame Emperor, there are no golden skill cards this time, only 3 colored cards and 4 silver ones. Hoping for something strong, he picks one of the silver cards. Suddenly, time rewinds, and Gongjia finds himself alive again, 24 hours before the event. He wakes up on his bed and immediately checks the skill he obtained. The Hunter ability window shows that he has gained Sword Constellation, an A+ ranked passive skill. Although it is not the kill count ability he wanted, he opens the card anyway, curious to see what kind of power the new skill will reveal. Just then, Gongjia begins to hear someone's voice nearby and wonders who is speaking so loudly. When he turns to his side, he is stunned to see a man lying on the bed next to him. The man seems to be talking to an old man, telling him to train quietly at night. Gongjia freezes in shock, unable to process what he is seeing. Fear grips him as he silently watches the man, who continues speaking while facing the wall. He remains speechless, too stunned to move or say anything, completely unsure of what is happening. As Gongjia notices that the man keeps talking without stopping, he decides to call out to him and ask who he is. The man turns around, surprised that Gongjia can both see and hear him. It feels strange to him, because no one has ever been able to perceive his presence before, except Marcus. The man tries to stand up, but he immediately bumps his head against the ceiling and grumbles that the house is too small for him. Then he asks about Marcus's whereabouts. Hearing the name shocks Gongjia, so he asks if the man means the Sword Saint. The man confirms it, but finds it odd that Gongjia calls Marcus a Sword Saint, saying he only sees Marcus as a beginner. Still, he lets it go, accepting that people in this world seem to call him that, and continues asking where Marcus is while trying to peek through the window that is too small for his size. At that moment, Gongja's skill window appears, explaining the effect of the new skill he copied from the Sword Saint. It reveals that the skill embodies a man who once came from another world and conquered the tower up to the 99th floor, but was defeated before reaching the 100th. His resentment from that failure was so deep that he became a wandering spirit. The system explains that while he cannot physically exist in Gongja's world, he can mentally communicate with the ability holder. Gongjia is told to learn from this man's vast experience and knowledge. Realizing this, Gongjia understands that the man must be a ghost. He asks if he is the same spirit that the Sword Saint used to talk to, and the man confirms that he is right. Gongjia then explains that he accidentally copied him from Marcus. Hearing that, the spirit becomes furious and demands that Gongjia return him to Marcus immediately. He assumes that if Gongjia could copy him, then he should be able to undo it as well. When Gongjia stays silent, the spirit grabs him and yells, insisting that he send him back. Gongjia finally tells him that it's impossible to reverse what has already happened. The spirit reluctantly begins to accept his situation, but keeps talking non-stop. Gongjia grows irritated and tells him they need to figure out how to coexist quietly from now on. Then Gongja remembers how the Sword Saint looked when people thought he was talking to himself. Realizing he now understands the truth behind that, he tells the spirit that he must hide from the Sword Saint for the rest of his life. The spirit is confused and asks why Gongja would hide from him, calling Marcus the kindest hunter he has ever known. Still, he warns Gongja never to mention Marcus's grandchildren, and Gongja replies that he already knows that rule very well. Gongja explains that the reason he mentioned the Sword Saint earlier is because Marcus has a skill that allows him to see a person's kill count. The spirit immediately recognizes the skill and identifies it as Detective's Insight, calling it a useless ability that only lets someone sense whether another person is a killer or not. Gongja then reveals that his own kill count is 4,091. The spirit refuses to believe it, saying that Gongja feels like a complete beginner with no aura at all, and that killing so many people is impossible for him. Gongja quickly clarifies that he didn't actually kill 4,091 people. He explains that he has only killed one man, someone who would become a villain in the future, and that the remaining 4,090 deaths are the number of times he has killed himself. He says he did it all just to stop that man 11 years in the future. He continues by describing his unique ability to copy the skill of anyone who kills him, also mentioning the power he gained from the Flame Emperor. Because of that, he has become immortal and can no longer truly die. The spirit is shocked by the story. As Gongja explains everything that happened, the spirit becomes deeply interested in him and asks for his name. After hearing it, he questions how Gongja met the Sword Saint and managed to copy his skill. Gongja explains that it happened by coincidence, but he later realized he needed to obtain the strongest skills to become stronger himself. Hearing this determination makes the spirit intrigued. He decides he wants to train Gongja, but first asks to see how he hunts monsters. They head to the forest, where Gongja demonstrates his usual hunting method by attacking slimes. After watching him kill one, the spirit confirms his earlier intuition, but Gongja asks what he means. The spirit then shares a little about his past life. He was known as the Sword Emperor in his own world, the first to climb the tower faster than anyone else when it first appeared there. Gongja remembers what his skill window said about the spirit, the man who cleared the tower up to the 99th floor. The spirit nods and says he already sees what he needs to see. He tells Gongja that he is already strong, but Gongja insists that he has no talent for combat and hopes to be trained. To his surprise, the spirit replies that Gongja does have talent, an enormous one. Gongja thinks he's only joking, but the spirit assures him he's serious. He explains that Gongja has no gift for swordsmanship or aura. His body is average, and his movements are clumsy. Yet there is one rare quality that stands above all. He does not fear death. Most fighters instinctively protect their lives during battle, but Gongja does not. The spirit concludes that dying over 4,000 times must have erased that fear entirely. Gongja is astonished that such a thing could be considered a talent. The spirit then explains that talents are not always something one is born with. They can also awaken through life experiences. Among all forms of talent, overcoming the fear of death is the hardest to achieve. For the first time in his life, Gongja hears someone speak to him like this, and it leaves a deep impression on him. The spirit then asks what Gongja was thinking about when he allowed the Sword Saint to kill him. Gongja admits that he was admiring the moon and the beauty of the Sword Saint's technique. The spirit bursts out laughing at the answer. He then remembers that since Gongja's skill copies but does not steal, the Sword Saint must still have another version of him. This makes him curious about who would become the better hunter between Marcus and Gongja. Finally, the spirit declares that he will help Gongja so he won't lose to the Sword Saint and perhaps even surpass him. With renewed excitement, he tells Gongja that it is time for them to conquer the tower together. The next day, the spirit guy tries to wake Gongja from his sleep, but Gongja, still feeling sleepy, asks for 5 more minutes. The spirit guy refuses, reminding him that in those 5 minutes, the Sword Saint might already be clearing the 10th floor. Despite the disturbance, Gongja refuses to get up. He uses his pillow to block his ears, trying to ignore the spirit guy. Seeing this, the spirit guy decides to start singing right beside his ears. He knows Gongja would not be able to sleep with such noise, leaving him no choice but to wake up. As the spirit guy sings louder, Gongja finally stands up forcefully and checks the time. It is only 4 a.m. He knows it is not yet time for training, but he quickly realizes that the spirit guy wakes him only out of boredom. The spirit guy does not deny it. Gongja then understands why the Sword Saint trains at 4 a.m. every day. It is probably not out of diligence, but because the spirit guy is too noisy to let anyone sleep. The spirit guy believes Gongja should be grateful for being woken early. but Gongja feels angry instead. Since he has no choice, he gets up and they head outside to train. On the way, the spirit guy remarks that although Gongja loves starting from the ground up, he is not even on the ground but rather underground. Ever since Gongja copied the Sword Saint's skill, he has been avoiding the Sword Saint. Instead, he follows the training schedule that the spirit assigns to him as they head toward their training ground. There is also a guild called the Merchant Troop, which later becomes known as the Merchant Alliance. The leader of this guild is Countess, the third-ranked hunter. She possesses a unique skill that allows her to trade with the outside world. Because of her powerful ability, the Merchant Troop holds a complete monopoly inside the tower and becomes the only place where people can buy lottery tickets in Babylon. That day, Gongja and the spirit guy visit the guild to claim his prize from the Merchant Troop's happiness lottery. The secretary informs him that lottery tickets cannot be cashed in after 2 years of purchase. Gongja clarifies that his ticket is from the previous week. He bought it because the spirit guy told him they needed money, so he decided to win the lottery. The secretary runs a background check on the ticket. When he sees the result, he is shocked to find that Gongja actually won 53,000 gold coins, while the highest prize among recent winners was only 49,000. Everyone in the guild turns their eyes toward Gongja in surprise. The secretary quickly confirms the winning number and goes to fetch his supervisor. Gongja remains calm, saying he has no problem waiting. Gongja has already calculated that making his win public is safer. If the winner were killed, it would damage the merchant troop's reputation the most, so he feels protected by their interest. Soon, the supervisor arrives and introduces himself as Arthur Taylor. He asks Gongja to follow him to the upper rooms. Gongja knows that an F-rank hunter like him normally cannot speak on equal terms with someone of that status, but today is different. He is now a 50,000 gold coin customer. The spirit guy reads Gongja's expression and notices how happy he looks being treated respectfully. He advises Gongja to get used to it and not appear surprised, like the Flame Emperor and the Sword Saint often do. But Gongja does not wish to act like them. Gongja is led into a room where his prize money is kept. The supervisor explains that he can either store it in the guild or take it immediately. Gongja knows that the amount equals 5.5 billion won in his homeland, enough to make him live like a king. Yet he decides that wealth is not his goal. He wants to conquer the tower and stand at the top of all hunters, using money only as a means to reach that end. He chooses to keep his money in the guild. The supervisor praises his decision as a wise one and mentions that he always recommends this option to prize winners. Gongja then decides to buy an honorary guild membership. He asks the supervisor to deduct the 10,000 gold fee for a second-tier membership from his winnings. This surprises the supervisor, who asks if Gongja has never been affiliated with any guild before. Gongja replies that he has not. The spirit guy feels pleased with Gongja's decision, understanding that the main reason a hunter joins a guild is to gain protection under the guild's name. He feels proud that Gongja realizes this on his own. Even though there are vigilantes and the Hunter Association, Gongja knows that the city is too lawless for hunters to rely on them for safety. He remembers how the Flame Emperor never joined any guild and lived with pride in his independence. The Flame Emperor had even won the lottery twice, but likely never paid any protection money. Gongja understands that refusing to join any guild must have made the Flame Emperor enemies among the larger organizations, which may have led to his near poisoning. Gongja does not want to follow the Flame Emperor's path, so he sees no reason to make enemies of powerful guilds. He then makes one more request to the supervisor. He explains that he currently lives in a cheap studio apartment and asks if the guild can recommend a better place for him to stay. He also requests that if any newspaper company asks about the identity of the first-place lottery winner, the guild should tell them that he is an honorary member of the merchant troupe. The spirit guy observes all of Gongja's actions and realizes that Gongja is now capable of handling things on his own without needing constant guidance. From that day, Gongja begins to enjoy the special privileges that come with his new status, not because of revenge, but as part of his growth towards something greater. After leaving the Merchant Troops Guild, the spirit guy asks Gongja what he needs next now that he has enough money for his tuition fees. Gongjia says he needs a teacher, which makes the spirit guy jealous because he already considers himself as Gongjia's teacher. Feeling slightly offended, the spirit guy tells him to pick something else instead. He expects Gongjia to say he wants something powerful, maybe an elixir to boost his physical strength or a scroll containing advanced martial arts techniques. But when he thinks about Gongjia's current level, he realizes that Gongjia would not be able to understand any secret martial art manuals yet. So the spirit guy tells him that what he truly needs right now are high-quality elixirs made by top masters from the guild. Gongjia then wonders if such elixirs are not usually very expensive. The spirit guy admits that they are indeed costly, whispering the actual price into Gongjia's ear. Gongjia is stunned by how expensive they are, and quickly calculates that even if he spends all his remaining money, he could only afford 4 bottles. The spirit guy adds that he might be able to buy 5 if he gets a bulk discount and tells him not to complain, saying it is his own fault for not being strong enough. As they head toward the store, the spirit guy suddenly tells Gongjia to hide. Confused, Gongjia looks around before quickly jumping into a nearby dustbin, just as Marcus, the sword saint, walks past. The spirit guy then reveals that the store they came to is actually Marcus's favorite place to shop. Hearing this, Gongjia becomes frustrated that the spirit guy only tells him now, after he has already hidden himself in a trash bin. He feels embarrassed but stays hidden until Marcus passes. When he finally gets up, Marcus has already gone inside the store. The spirit guy realizes this is bad news because Marcus might buy up all the good elixirs before they can get any. The spirit guy considers that store the best one in the entire district, but when Gongjia checks online, he sees that it does not even appear among the top 300 stores. This makes him think they should look for another place. He tells the spirit guy that he knows somewhere else they can go, a place where they might find high-quality elixirs for a much cheaper price. He claims to know a talented pharmacist who can help. When they arrive near the location, the spirit guy feels uneasy. The area looks rough and dangerous, filled with thugs loitering around the entrance. It does not look like the kind of place where anyone could buy good elixirs. He wonders if a skilled pharmacist could really live or work there. Gongjia, however, insists that the person he is referring to is a true genius. As they walk past the thugs, Gongjia reads their thoughts. He realizes they are planning to rob him, but when they see him talking to himself, they assume he is insane and leave him alone. Soon, they reach the store. Gongjia tells the spirit guy that this is the place he was talking about. Inside, they meet Castellan, the pharmacist and future rank 5 hunter, whom Gongjia already knows from his experiences in the future. At this time, Castellan's life is far from successful. She is deeply in debt, and they find her begging her creditor to give her more time to pay, pleading that her goods will sell soon. The creditor has already threatened to seize her stock. Even though Castellan has lowered her prices, people still refuse to buy from her, thinking her products are too expensive. In truth, her lack of sales comes from her store's poor condition. No one realizes she is a genius alchemist with unmatched skill. Castellan tries to defend herself passionately, insisting that no one in Babylon can offer potions of her quality at her prices. She believes that instead of criticizing her, the townspeople should be grateful that she runs a business of such value in their rundown area. Her bold words anger the people even more, and they storm off despite her desperate pleas for them to stay. Left alone, Castellan begins to cry bitterly. Watching her, the spirit guy feels confused and wonders what special quality Gongjia sees in this woman that makes him choose her out of all the alchemists in town. Just then, Gongjia steps forward toward Castellan and asks if she is still running her business. He tells her that he would like to make a large and expensive order. In truth, Castellan is destined to become the leader of the Alchemy Castle Guild after ranking among the top 5 hunters in the future, the same future that Gongjia once came from. Hearing his words, Castellan quickly wipes her tears and stands up, saying she is still open for business. She asks how expensive the order should be. When Gongjia tells her that he wants elixirs worth around 20,000 gold coins, she is completely stunned. Her mouth hangs open in disbelief as she never expected such a wealthy customer to appear in her struggling shop. Gongjia, however, already knows who she will become in the years ahead, an influential and unapproachable figure in the alchemy world. He thinks that if he can form a connection with her now, before she even rises in rank, then she will one day be like a golden goose to him, producing endless opportunities and rewards. With that thought, Gongjia calmly asks her to accept his order, intending to become one of her first loyal and regular customers. Castellan leads Gongjia into her store. The place is small and shabby, with shelves half empty and the air thick with the smell of herbs and failed experiments. She apologizes for the poor condition and asks him to bear with it. Then she sits down and asks if he truly intends to commission her for 20,000 gold worth of elixirs. Gongja confirms that he means it and even offers to pay her immediately just to assure her of his sincerity. Hearing that, Castellan's eyes brighten. She admits that she would be very happy to receive payment first. Gongja already expects such a response. Her financial state is so dire that she cannot even maintain basic business formalities. Without hesitation, he gives her permission to withdraw as much money as she needs from his guild account, promising to inform the merchant troupe beforehand. This leaves Castellan stunned. She has never met a customer willing to trust her so completely, especially when her reputation is so low. She feels both surprised and grateful, then immediately prepares to get to work. She asks Gongja what kind of elixirs he wants, but adds that if his request involves any form of illegal drug, she will refuse. Even with her business on the verge of collapse, she still shows integrity, standing firm in her principles. That same conviction, Gongja knows, is what will one day make her the legendary alchemy Castellan. Gongja reassures her that he is not asking for drugs. Relieved, Castellan asks for the specific details of the elixir he wants. Gongja turns to the spirit guy, who carefully lists every ingredient needed. Gongja repeats the list perfectly, without missing a word. Castellan listens closely and quickly recognizes each component. When Gongja finishes listing all 23 ingredients, she analyzes them with sharp insight. She explains that these ingredients combine into a powerful mixture that greatly enhances reflexes. She adds that the formula is of exceptionally high quality and requires a precise process. Every ingredient must be boiled together at controlled temperatures to release their full effect. The spirit guy watches her with growing amazement. Her confidence, precision, and deep understanding of alchemy far exceed his expectations. As she continues explaining the function of each ingredient and how the elixir's effects change depending on how it is consumed, the spirit guy becomes even more impressed. Gongja asks Castellan how long it will take her to make the elixirs, and to his surprise, she says it will take only 4 days. She adds that she could even finish sooner if she buys new equipment to work with. Gongja recalls how people often queue for hours in front of the most famous alchemists, so the offer of 4 days seems like an incredible deal. He leaves afterward, and along the way, the spirit guy continues to doubt Castellan's ability to handle the task. Gongja does not try to convince him further, and instead asks how the spirit guy knows about the formula. The spirit guy explains that he actually created it himself after consuming countless poisons in his effort to develop the most powerful elixir. Gongja points out that Castellan was able to recognize the formula as a high-quality elixir, and he urges the spirit guy to trust her. He assures him that even though Castellan might not look impressive now, she will become the most powerful person in the alchemy castle within 10 years. The spirit guy falls silent for a moment, then insists that Castellan will eventually run away with Gongja's money. Exactly 4 days later, at the hotel provided by the guild, Castellan visits Gongja with the finished elixirs. She explains that she wanted to deliver them earlier, but needed extra time to mix several potions together. Gongja does not mind since the agreed period was 4 days. She presents the boxes to him, stating that she has made 90 elixirs, enough to last for about 30 days. The elixirs turn out to be 15 times more effective than those from the store the spirit guy had previously recommended. Castellan, somewhat curious, wonders why Gongja entrusted such an expensive request to a nameless pharmacist like her, even though she feels confident in her own skills. She knows that the formula he brought her can only be created by 2 alchemists in the whole of Babylon. Gongja, however, chooses her because he knows she will grow into a genius with time. But beyond that, he remembers that during the Great Fire in the city, Castellan was the first to rush to the scene, searching for survivors. He also realizes that she is one of the few who has seen the true nature of the Flame Emperor. To Gongja, Castellan proves to be not only skilled, but also compassionate and insightful, someone capable of understanding others deeply. Gongja sees that it would be a great loss not to get close to someone like her. He tells Castellan that he chose her because she looks kind and because he believes she will succeed even without his help. He suggests that they both work together and help each other grow, as he believes that kind hunters like them deserve to succeed and make the world better, not the cruel or insane ones. His words move Castellan, and she agrees with his outlook. She promises that he can always call on her for help and assures him that his requests will be her top priority. The next day, Gongja and the spirit guy proceed to the 3rd floor of the tower, where Gongja must face the monsters there. Before he begins, the spirit guy instructs him to drink one of Castellan's elixirs. Once Gongjia drinks it, his senses shift, and he notices that the elixir slows his perception of time, giving him more room to react in battle. The spirit guy asks whether Gongjia feels a strange sensation around his heart, and Gongjia realizes that he does. The spirit guy explains that this feeling is his aura, an energy formed inside the body when one enters the tower as a hunter. Most hunters never notice it, but Gongjia can sense it. However, to truly harness it, he must meditate, a process that takes time and will cause great pain, especially for someone like him who lacks natural talent. Just then, a monster charges toward Gongjia. He is not yet in full control of his body and fails to hear the spirit guy's warning to run before the creature reaches him. The spirit guy advises Gongjia to release his aura and use it if he wants to avoid getting hurt. He explains that Gongjia must begin to train and fight seriously from now on. Gongjia, however, is still under the influence of the elixir. He can see the orc's attacks clearly, but his body refuses to respond, as if frozen between thought and motion. Despite this, the spirit guy keeps encouraging him, assuring him that he can defeat the orc. He explains that low-level monsters like orcs have simple and predictable attack patterns, and once Gongjia understands them, the rest will become easier. He tells him to gather the aura in his legs to move faster. Gongjia realizes that if he can just dodge one attack, he might have a chance to fight back. He struggles with all his strength to move a single step, and after several attempts, he finally manages to move one leg. It takes far more effort than he expected. The spirit guy tells him that it feels so difficult because his body does not yet have proper channels for the aura to flow through. He compares Gongjia's body to a narrow footpath hidden in a thick forest, saying that the aura cannot move freely in such a confined path. For him to truly control aura, he must open up a clear path inside himself, like a wide highway. Without the elixir enhancing his senses, he would not have been able to even sense aura at all. Gongjia realizes that the spirit guy is right, though he does not want to admit it. He simply hopes that the aura will soon flow through his body properly. After a short while, he forces his exhausted body to move again and attacks the orc. He swings his weapon with determination, but the orc's skin proves to be tough and resistant to his strikes. The spirit guy reminds him not to let his guard down while attacking and instructs him to focus all his aura at the tip of his blade. He knows this task will be too difficult for Gongjia at his current level, but tells him to try pouring all his aura into the blade's edge. Gongjia obeys and struggles to release his aura into the weapon. The pain is unbearable as his body resists the flow. The pathways for the aura are not yet formed, and the energy burns through him. Still, he endures the agony, forcing the energy toward the blade until, at last, he pierces the orc's thick skin and kills it. By the time the battle ends, Gongjia's body is completely exhausted, trembling from pain and strain, and he stands on the edge of death. The spirit guy knows exactly how Gongjia feels, that mix of pain, despair, and the desire to simply give up and die. He tells Gongjia that he must actually die in order to become stronger. It is the result he had expected all along, and he intentionally chose this harsh training method because he knows Gongjia has the ability to come back to life. Since he understands that Gongjia's kill count increases when he kills himself, the spirit guy decides to make use of a different approach, one that allows Gongjia to die repeatedly without the count rising. He predicts that Gongjia will have to die 100 times before his aura and body synchronize perfectly, but assures that these deaths will not harm him permanently. As he speaks, he does not warn Gongjia that a monster has appeared behind him. Instead, he allows the creature to strike. The monster's attack pierces through Gongjia, killing him instantly. To the spirit guy, this marks the beginning of Gongjia's long and painful journey, the first of many deaths he must endure to truly master his power. The status window notifies that Gongjia has already died. He then wakes up in the netherworld, as he calls it, which is why he stays there for a while after dying. In that place, he gets the chance to choose the skill card of his killer. He feels surprised that the spirit guy is even able to follow him there. At that moment, the skill window displays the skill cards of the monster that killed him. Since the spirit guy is a ghost, he praises Gongjia's skill that allows him to copy other people's skills, calling it an overpowered one. He becomes so amazed by it that he starts to feel jealous, wishing he had the same ability. Since Gongjia is not really bothered about the monster's skill, he decides to just choose any skill. However, the spirit guy suggests that if Gongjia wants to pick a skill, he should choose something powerful, and not just any random one. Gongjia argues that there's no way to know which card is better than the others, since they all have colors, but only their backs are visible to him. No matter how he moves his head around, he can only see the backs of the cards. Surprisingly, the spirit guy says he can see the first card. Gongja asks if he can see the details of the skills, and the spirit guy replies that he actually can. Gongja then asks for the details, and the spirit guy explains that the first skill card is called the Blessing of Reproduction, while the second one is called Chiek, which is the sound orcs use to end their sentences. The spirit guy knows that if he hadn't stopped Gongja, he would have chosen the Chiek skill right away. Even after hearing the explanations, Gongja still wants to pick Chiek. The spirit guy tries to convince him to take the Blessing of Reproduction instead, but Gongja doesn't listen. He believes Chiek is better, so he chooses it, much to the spirit guy's disapproval. Afterward, Gongja wakes up 24 hours before the incident. The skill card appears before him, showing that there is no penalty for using it. The spirit guy is still angry that Gongja didn't choose the Blessing of Reproduction. Gongja tells him to stop being angry and wonders why he would ever choose that skill when he's thinking clearly. They then head out to train. On their way to the 3rd floor, the spirit guy says he can teach Gongja everything about aura within 6 months. Gongja, however, shows little interest in what he's saying and doesn't bother replying. When they reach the 3rd floor, they find monsters already there. Just like last time, Gongja can see all the orcs' movements. He decides to face them and fight, activating the Chiek skill. As he says the word, the orc mistakes him for one of their own and lowers its guard. Taking advantage of that, Gongja easily kills the orc. Meanwhile, the spirit guy already knows that this is going to happen and condemns Gongja for it. He dislikes the fact that Gongja betrays such a pure orc, saying that it is because of people like Gongja that pure orcs suffer in this world. The spirit guy becomes very angry about Gongja's method, but Gongja doesn't care at all about how he feels. Instead, he simply tells him that they should move on to the 4th floor. A week later, Gongja is already on the 5th floor, where he must defeat the floor's boss monster, the Great Goblin King. To prepare, Gongja activates his Goblin High Society skill, which he once copied from a goblin. He shouts Goruk at the Goblin King, perfectly imitating the goblin language. The Goblin King becomes confused, wondering how someone other than himself could speak the language so flawlessly. While the Goblin King is distracted and no longer focused on him, Gongja takes advantage of the moment to end the fight quickly. Although the battle ends fast, Gongja still considers the Goblin King the toughest opponent he has faced that week. The spirit guy, however, is unimpressed by the fight since Gongja doesn't face the Goblin King head-on. As they speak, the status window appears, showing that Gongja's level has increased. His skill slots expand, and his hunter rank rises to E-class. The spirit guy then asks what kind of level up Gongja received, but Gongja doesn't understand what he means. The spirit guy explains that a person's aura type is determined by the effect that appears when they level up. He says the Flame Emperor's aura type is fire, as it reflects his inner self. Aura, he adds, depends on one's memories and emotions, which shape their life and manifest as aura. Gongja asks what the Sword Saint's aura is, and the spirit guy replies that it is moonlight. He explains that when the Sword Saint was young, he got lost in the mountains. Not wanting to die, he climbed to the top and saw the moon shining beautifully above. From that day, the Sword Saint wished to shine like the moonlight itself. Hearing this, Gongja concludes that the Sword Saint must be somewhat abnormal too. Seeing that they have cleared the 5th floor, the spirit guy tells Gongja that they should proceed to the 6th, but Gongja suggests skipping directly to the 10th floor instead. The spirit guy is shocked and asks if Gongja is overestimating himself. Gongja insists that he isn't, but the spirit guy remains worried, knowing how many experienced hunters have lost their lives on the 10th floor over the years. Gongja tells the spirit that if he cannot clear the 19th floor with only 2 coins, he will start calling him a master. This means he prepares to die only once to clear the flood. The spirit doubts his capability, knowing how Gongja had to die almost 6 times just to clear the 5th floor boss monster. Instead, Gongja asks the spirit to reveal the skills of the 10th floor boss. He makes a deal that if he wins, the spirit must stop calling him zombie and start calling him by his name, Gongja. The spirit still believes Gongja will fail on the 10th floor, but they decide to test it anyway. While other hunters watch Gongja talking to himself, they assume he has gone insane, unaware that he is speaking to an invisible being. They all head toward the tower guard. Gongja informs the guard that he wants to challenge the 10th floor boss, but the guard underestimates him and believes solo hunting is nothing short of suicide. Despite the guard's discouragement, Gongjia refuses to change his mind, knowing the law allows any hunter to enter if willing to take the challenge. Seeing that the guard may not permit him to proceed, Gongjia fabricates a story, claiming that his lover recently died and he has been diagnosed with an incurable disease. He says he wants to die an honorable death as a hunter by facing a monster. He gives the guard money, pretending it is what he saved from hospital bills, urging him to accept it since he no longer needs it. He also asks the guard not to record his entry, saying it is his final wish as a hunter. The guard becomes emotional from Gongjia's lies and allows him to enter the tower. Gongjia arrives at the 10th floor, the same one once cleared by the Flame Emperor, Su-ha. However, this time, Gongjia comes to leave a legacy even greater than the Flame Emperor's. He opens the door to the 10th floor and is surprised to see two babies standing at the front line, with multiple copies of them in black attire behind. As he steps inside, the two babies invite him to play hide and seek. When Gongjia reaches the middle of the building, the status window appears, announcing that Kim Gongjia has entered the boss stage and is recognized as the challenger. He decides to play along with the babies. The status window wishes him luck as his challenge begins. The Black Dragon Guild maintains its reputation as the strongest guild since the tower's opening, but now it faces its 30th consecutive failure. The Black Witch, one of its most powerful members, fails to clear the 10th floor, and the news spreads quickly. The reporters speculate about the reason for their repeated defeats, but she insists that their failure has nothing to do with a lack of skill or preparation. Instead, she attributes it to sheer misfortune. Soon after her failure, the Flame Emperor clears the 10th floor, shocking the public and casting doubt on the Black Witch's explanation. Many begin to question whether luck alone can account for such a stark difference in results. Gongjia, on the other hand, ponders deeply on why, among all the various hunters, it is only the Flame Emperor who manages to break through the 10th floor's challenge. Driven by curiosity and determination, Gongjia decides to attempt the 10th floor himself. He already understands the key to the challenge, finding and destroying the single real doll hidden among countless identical copies. However, these dolls are surrounded by flames so intense that they distort the air around them. The spirit accompanying him explains that the fire is no ordinary flame, it is hellfire forged from pure aura. Even if Gongjia cloaks his body in layers of aura to resist it, he will only be able to endure the flames for about 10 minutes. A hunter with fire-type aura, however, would barely be affected, which explains how the Flame Emperor succeeds so easily. As Gongjia steps into the blazing arena, the unbearable heat eats away at his aura barrier. Sweat steams off his skin as the hellfire roars around him, threatening to consume him whole. The floor's boss warns that if he fails to find and destroy the real doll in time, she will personally hunt him down and kill him. Gongjia, overwhelmed and unsure of what to do, decides that he will think after dying, since death, to him, has never been the end. Meanwhile, the spirit doubts Gongjia's chances of victory. Even the Sword Saint, who can endure 30 minutes within the flames, has not yet cleared the 10th floor. The Sword Saint waits until he can last an hour in the fire before attempting again, convinced that endurance is the key to success. Yet Gongjia clings to his faith in his own method, believing that even if he dies, he can eventually win. With his aura rapidly weakening and only 10 seconds of resistance left, Gongjia makes a desperate decision. He lunges toward one of the countless dolls, grabbing it in a final gamble. The doll responds coldly, telling him that she is not the real one. His remaining time ticks down, 3 seconds left, and the flames close in around him. When his aura barrier collapses, the hellfire engulfs his body, burning through flesh and bone. The pain becomes unbearable, so intense that he begins to wish for death to come quickly and release him from the agony. Eventually, Gongjia dies once again, and as always, his skill acquisition condition is fulfilled. The familiar scene unfolds before him as the cards of the defeated monster, the Hellfire Maiden, appear in front of him. Each glowing card represents one of her unique abilities. Following his usual habit, Gongjia turns to the spirit beside him, asking him to analyze the cards and help decide which one to choose. Among the displayed options, an S-rank skill immediately catches the spirit's attention, the Inferno Barrier. Without hesitation, the spirit urges Gongjia to select it, explaining that the skill grants the power to summon a fiery hell forged from aura at will, with the only condition being that Gongjia himself must stand within the barrier for it to manifest. The spirit sees it as a perfect offensive and defensive ability, one worthy of its S-rank status. However, Gongjia feels uneasy. Something within him resists the choice, as though instinct warns him that it is not the right one. He recalls the earlier moment when he grabbed one of the dolls and watched it burn apart into shreds. That memory stirs a strange intuition in him. Ignoring the spirit's insistence, he asks for the descriptions of the remaining skills before making his final decision. The spirit reluctantly lists them. There is Labyrinth Planning, an A-rank skill focused on spatial manipulation and trap design. Next are Doll Control and Remote Control, both B-rank abilities that allow for limited puppet manipulation from a distance. Finally, there is Trap Placement, a C-rank skill that enhances the effectiveness of traps and decoys during battle. Gongja listens to each one carefully, yet he senses that something important remains unsaid. Indeed, one last card lies unmentioned, one that the spirit has overlooked, or perhaps deliberately avoided. Gongja's attention lingers on it, guided by intuition. He recalls how, during his first attempt, he noticed that among all the dolls, only one had a faint trace of fire aura and remained unscathed by the surrounding flames. He now realizes that this must have been the real doll, protected by a unique skill. The answer comes to him at once. The Hellfire Maiden possessed an A-rank ability called Be Careful of Fire Awake or Sleep. This skill allows the user to selectively prevent chosen targets from burning, even within an inferno. Trusting his instincts, Gongja chooses this overlooked skill. The status window flashes in acknowledgement, confirming that Be Careful of Fire Awake or Sleep has been successfully copied into his repertoire. A sense of satisfaction fills him. This choice feels right, aligned with his deduction and intuition. Moments later, time resets as his ability activates, sending him 24 hours back before the failed attempt. He awakens inside the same deadly mansion, but this time he carries confidence instead of fear. With his new skill at hand, he plans to explore methodically, searching for the real doll without the panic of the flames overwhelming him. The once impossible 10th floor now feels within reach, almost simple. Yet his confidence is short-lived. The system reveals a penalty bound to the new skill, Recreation of Trauma. The window explains that the power replicates not only the ability of the Hellfire Maiden, but also the lingering anguish tied to her death. Gongja suddenly feels the weight of this curse descend upon him. The skill begins to replay fragments of the Hellfire Maiden's own suffering, her torment, and the horrors she endured. Confusion grips him as he struggles to comprehend why a skill would force him to relive the trauma of the monster he has slain. The maiden's trauma begins long before she becomes the Hellfire Maiden. In her past life, she wanders the famine-stricken streets, weak and starving, begging for scraps of food. The townspeople shut their doors against her cries, some slamming them with disgust or fear. Hunger gnaws at her endlessly, and no one shows her kindness. Every step she takes feels heavier than the last, her small body trembling from exhaustion and despair. One day, as she staggers through the streets searching for anything edible, a man passes by. His expression twists in annoyance as he looks at the starving girl, and he mutters a hateful wish that someone would wipe out all the beggars littering the streets. His words, spoken in irritation, seal her fate. Not long after, another man appears. He wears green clothing and a matching hat, his demeanor calm and his eyes falsely gentle. Pretending to pity her condition, he approaches her with a warm smile. He introduces himself as a doctor and claims that he has other young girls living in his mansion, all of whom he cares for and feeds. His words sound sincere and comforting to the starving girl, who, desperate and trusting, follows him with fragile hope that her suffering might finally end. However, the man's kindness turns to cruelty the moment they arrive at his mansion. Instead of offering food or treatment, he drags her into a narrow, dark room that resembles a dungeon. Heavy chains bind her wrists and ankles, and the air reeks of decay. The girl begs softly for food, her voice trembling, but the man only smiles coldly and tells her to be patient. Days pass, and her hunger worsens until she can barely lift her head. Then, his true nature reveals itself. He pulls her outside, his face twisted with hatred and self-righteousness. He accuses her of pretending to be weak and of using hunger as an excuse to avoid working. He declares that beggars like her spread disease and despair wherever they go, and that the world would be cleaner without them. He claims he kills such people to purify the land. Soon, his madness takes a darker turn. Convinced that orphans are the root cause of the famine, he decides to sacrifice her to appease his imagined god. The ritual is brutal, a mockery of divinity, as he binds her again and chants words of false holiness while preparing her death. Yet even after offering her up, his insatiable hatred drives him to hunt down other orphans, her friends, children who once shared her suffering. The maiden, powerless and broken, watches as her companions disappear one after another. Grief and rage consume her heart, twisting it beyond recognition. All these memories flood into Gongja's mind as the penalty skill activates. The horror, the starvation, the despair, and the betrayal become sensations he experiences firsthand. The spirit beside him witnesses it all too, and fury overtakes him. The sight of that man murdering innocent children under the guise of purification fills him with disgust and anger. As the vision fades, Gongja begins to piece together the truth. He suspects that the 10th floor boss might actually be the maiden's original form, her true self before she was corrupted into a monster. However, the spirit corrects him, explaining that the tower's bosses are not always direct copies of real beings. They are often created from fragments of other worlds, creatures, heroes, and souls molded together by the tower's will. The Hellfire Maiden may have been reborn from her suffering, but she is no longer entirely the same person. The spirit assures Gongja that from the 11th floor onward, the nature of the tower's construction and the origin of its bosses will begin to make sense. Gongja feels frustrated, wondering why the spirit withheld such an important detail until now. For Gongja to obtain the original copy, he must save the maiden from the devil man who hunts her. He searches for the maiden, which leads him to the man's mansion. Just as he arrives, a fire breaks out, forcing everyone inside to flee for safety. Amid the chaos, Gongja hears that some children are trapped in the basement. Meanwhile, the girl witnesses everything from the prison where she is held. She realizes the fire is the handiwork of the man and hopes she can explain that she and the other children have done nothing wrong. All they ever wanted was to avoid starving and enjoy playing together for a little longer. Soon, the status window completes its reenactment of the trauma, signaling the end of the penalty. Gongja and the spirit guy return to the apartment. Despite the sadness of the girl's story, the spirit guy feels there is nothing they can do. He understands that the 10th floor boss has already become a monster, the original children are long dead in another world, and all of it happened before Gongja was even born. The spirit guy knows that if this situation occurred inside the tower, Gongja might have to die countless times before saving those girls. But since it happened in another world, he concludes that the problem cannot be solved. He advises Gongja to find the real doll and continue climbing to the 11th floor and beyond, reminding him that if he wishes to stand as the strongest hunter at the top, he must be ready to face such problems alone. When Gongja reflects on it, he realizes that the Flame Emperor would have done exactly as the spirit guy suggested. He knows that Suha would have found the real doll and destroyed it without hesitation, whether he saw the trauma or not. However, Gongja chooses not to be like the Flame Emperor. The spirit guy senses this and asks what Gongja plans to do, already suspecting that he does not intend to kill the 10th floor boss. Yet, he reminds him that killing the boss is the only way to clear the floor. Gongja refuses to believe this. Instead, he recalls the spirit guy's earlier explanation about the S-rank skill, the one that burns unpacified resentment, unheard voices, and unfulfilled dreams, creating a fiery hell within a 2-kilometer radius around the boss. The key detail he remembers is that no one can escape hell without the boss's permission. This reminds him of the Black Dragon Guild, who once reached the 10th floor and all returned alive without killing the boss. From that, he deduces that only the boss could have granted them permission to escape. The 10th floor is known as an impossible stage for humans to clear, but Gongja understands the truth. The boss only wants one thing, for the visitor to play with the girls. Accepting this, he activates his skill and walks through the fire. The girls watch in shock as he approaches, surprised that the flames do not burn him. He reaches them and begins to play hide and seek, fully aware that the girls he plays with are spirits bound to the ground. The girls pretend to hide, and it becomes Gongja's turn to seek them. As he finds and touches each one, he realizes that none of them is the original doll, and each girl melts away upon his touch. He looks around and notices a small boy locked inside a prison cell. Gongja approaches and invites the boy to join their game of hide and seek. When he touches the boy does not melt, revealing that he is the original doll. Gongja opens the cage and sets him free. The boy feels immense gratitude toward Gongja for finally releasing him. By finding and freeing the real original doll, Gongja successfully clears both the hidden stage and the normal stage of the 10th floor. Having cleared the 10th floor, Gongja gains access to the 11th floor. The guardian spirit is surprised and praises him for achieving what many consider impossible. He says that hidden stages are always difficult, but Gongja managed it alone, and the reward fits his abilities. Despite the praise, Gongja remembers the horrors of the boss stage. He knows that tragedies like this happen everywhere, in any world. He reflects on the harsh realities around him. The guardian spirit continues to admire Gongja's strength and determination, noting how far he has come. A system announcement echoes through the tower. The 10th floor is cleared. Other hunters are shocked. The Black Dragon Guild stays silent, leaving everyone to wonder who accomplished it. The guardian spirit acknowledges that Gongja is no longer just another hunter. He is now the main character. Gongja feels satisfied. His success is undeniable. The countdown to the 11th floor begins, marking the next stage of his journey. The guardian spirit realizes Gongja is closer than anyone, even the legendary sword saint, to reaching the top. Each achievement brings him nearer to his ultimate goal. His path to greatness feels certain. Suddenly, a guard rushes to Gongja. He asks if Gongja cleared the 10th floor. Gongja pretends not to know. The guard insists, saying Gongja was the only one who mentioned the 10th floor, and his boss is asking for confirmation. Curious, Gongja asks what would happen if he were the one. The guard says he would need to give his name. Having already paid the guard 100 gold earlier, Gongja decides not to reveal more and leaves. Later, Gongja sits playing with a cat as the system asks which floor he will go to next. He remembers the guardian spirit's promise to add Lord to his name. The spirit hesitates, now seeing Gongja more as a partner than a subordinate. Gongja insists, and the spirit agrees to call him by the title. Rumors continue about who cleared the 10th floor. Some think it was the Black Dragon Guild. Others suspect the Sword Saint. Gongja, holding a cat he found, overhears people asking if he is Kim Gongja. He cautiously shows his identity card. One person introduces himself as the lead recruiter for the Vigilante Guild, hoping to recruit Gongja. Gongja warns them not to let his name reach the press. He doesn't want reporters bothering him before the 11th floor. The recruiters rent a cafe for an hour to talk. Gongja finds representatives from multiple guilds offering him money to join them. Despite the offers, Gongja is skeptical. The Sword Saint, the top-ranked player, isn't in a guild, so guild reputations are unclear. Gongja sees that the guilds want to use him for their own gain, not form a real alliance. Then, something surprising happens. The cat he is holding speaks, offering 500,000 gold to join its guild. The cat transforms into a woman, revealing herself as the rank 3 guild leader, the Countess. She offers Gongja the title of Vice Guild Leader along with the gold. Gongja, intrigued, decides he is interested in joining her guild. Gongja remains unfazed when the lady transforms from a cat into a human. He is accustomed to encountering unusual things and doesn't find her change alarming. To him, it is just another oddity in a world filled with them. One of the men who comes to convince Gongja to join his guild expresses disbelief at the lady's offer. He feels 500,000 gold is excessive for someone who just clears the 10th floor with their knowledge of his skills still lacking. He also questions the legitimacy of the title she offers him, feeling it might be undeserved. The lady, however, remains unbothered by his remarks. She stays focused on Gongja, showing no interest in the opinions of the others. Her primary goal is to recruit him, and she is intent on making that happen. Gongja, aware of the situation, issues a challenge. He announces that anyone willing to offer more than 500,000 gold can stay. The guild representatives quickly leave, unable to meet the offer. Now, it is just Gongja and the lady waiting in the cafe. Soon, the highest-ranking hunters from other guilds start arriving. Upon hearing about the lady's offer, they express surprise, though they are not shocked, knowing the Countess is known for flaunting her wealth. Her extravagant gesture is not unexpected. The group, sensing an opportunity to unwind, decides to celebrate. They agree to order coffee, with one of the women suggesting a cafe mocha. The others quickly follow suit, and they ask Gongja what he would like. Gongja senses that the guild representatives are testing him. He sees through their actions, recognizing the subtle game they play. As he watches the guild masters gather, he wonders if it is all just coincidence or a deliberate strategy to unsettle him. However, he remains composed, refusing to be caught off guard. The lady, sensing his awareness, confirms that all the hunters have been testing him. Gongja acknowledges it with a confident statement, showing that he has already figured it out. His calm demeanor only solidifies the lady's belief that he is no ordinary newcomer. His confidence makes her think he must have already faced significant challenges before, though she is unsure of the specifics. Despite this, Gongja starts considering their deeper motives. He wonders if their intentions go beyond testing him and might involve eliminating him altogether. Though he appreciates the support, he knows he must remain cautious and doesn't plan to let his guard down. The lady, however, knows more about him than she lets on. She recalls that Gongja has been the lottery winner of her guild, which tells her he has luck, courage, and possibly skill. In her experience, young individuals with these traits often succeed in whatever they pursue. This understanding leads her to believe that Gongja could be a valuable asset for her guild. Yet, one of the guild members is less convinced. He realizes that Gongja isn't a rookie and advises his colleagues to scout him further. Another member, eager for answers, directly asks Gongja which guild he plans to join. They are curious to see if he might choose to remain independent, like the Sword Saint, or if he will align with a guild. Knowing the media's intense focus on him, they begin strategizing how to handle the public fallout if Gongja decides not to commit to any guild. Gongja, after hearing the guild representatives' responses, begins to consider the consequences of joining any single guild. He realizes that joining one might spark an intense bidding war among them. He is aware that with the 10th floor cleared, he is in a unique position to bring attention to the tower, potentially attracting people from outside the tower, not just the war refugees, but those seeking a fresh start or a challenge. This opportunity could revitalize the morale of hunters living on the first floor, who might have grown complacent in their comfortable existence. However, Gongja doesn't want one guild to have an overwhelming advantage over the others, especially if it means leaving other guilds behind. To level the playing field, he proposes a solution. He suggests a poker game, where the guild that wins gets to claim him. But Gongja adds a twist. If he wins, he will join all of their guilds simultaneously, without accepting a higher position or monetary reward. He emphasizes that, regardless of the outcome, they must treat him as an equal, not just as a member, but as someone who stands on the same level as the highest-ranking figures in the room. The Countess, the guild leader, initially hesitates at the idea of treating Gongja as her equal. She is still uncertain about his true potential and whether he deserves such respect. However, as the other guild representatives accept Gongja's proposal, she finds herself with little choice but to agree. With the terms set, Gongja signals to the Guardian Spirit, asking for assistance in reading the other guild members' cards. The Guardian Spirit, loyal and helpful, agrees to help him out, even offering to alert Gongja if anyone tries to cheat during the game. As the poker game continues, Gongja's incredible winning streak persists, taking 30 rounds straight without losing a single hand. His success makes the other guild members begin to question his luck, or possibly his methods. Chunmoon Master, who has been quietly observing, can no longer contain his suspicions and confronts Gongja, accusing him of cheating. However, Gongja calmly denies any wrongdoing, pointing out that there is no evidence to suggest he is cheating. His composed demeanor only fuels Chunmoon's anger. Despite Gongja's denials, Chunmoon Master's frustration grows. He is convinced that Gongja must be using a hidden skill to win so consistently. He continues to press the issue, but the other guild representatives, seeing they are losing, begin to accept their defeats. They had initially come in with a fair deal, and even though they suspect Gongja is up to something, they know they agreed to his terms from the start. The Countess, who has been the most reluctant to treat Gongja as an equal, now finds herself acknowledging that her pride isn't going to be enough to navigate through the tower. However, one lady among them refuses to give up. She is determined to keep playing, not just for the game itself, but to understand more about Gongja. She shares her personal story with him, speaking of how she lost her family in the Civil War and was left to wander alone. She expresses how lonely her life has become as a result, and how much she longs for a sense of connection. Gongja listens attentively, empathizing with her. He shares that, like her, he is also an orphan. Gongja addresses the group, making it clear that despite clearing the 10th floor, he should not be treated as someone superior or special. He acknowledges the respect they have for the tower and its significance, but stresses that he doesn't have any intention to fight with them. He tells them that while they may be competitors, he doesn't know who will ultimately be recognized as the true hero of the tower. He encourages them to feel free to use his name when necessary to resolve any issues they may face. However, Gongja also requests their support in his own journey up the tower. He wants to experience that feeling of supremacy again, the same feeling he had when he first climbed the earlier floors. As the last woman who remained in the game finally admits defeat, the group reflects on what Gongja has said. They all agree that they must respect his wishes, especially his request to keep him on the same level as them. They each vow to support him in his journey, while hoping he will stick to his promise and remain true to his word. With the game now over, Gongja prepares to leave. As he turns to head toward the 11th floor, the lady asks him what he plans to do in preparation, suggesting he might not fully understand what lies ahead. Gongja confidently replies that he has received an extra hint about the 11th floor after clearing the 10th, and that's the extent of his current knowledge. The group, seeing his resolve and understanding, promises that they will return the favor of supporting him when the time comes. As the countdown to the 11th floor finishes, Gongja, still immersed in the events unfolding, checks online and sees that his name has been officially released. He is the one who cleared the 10th floor. While some people still question who could have done it, knowing that the Sword Saint has already denied it, Gongja is content that his identity is now out there. However, just before the 11th floor opens, he feels a sense of calm. By this point, most people won't know much about him until he reaches the 11th floor. As the final seconds of the countdown tick away, a figure appears in the sky, a lady, radiant and ethereal, looking like an angel. The crowd watches in awe, assuming she is some sort of celestial being. However, Gongja knows better, recognizing the presence of the guardian spirit. The spirit is there not simply to observe, but to explain the upcoming quest to them all. The lady, her voice ringing out across the crowd, announces that there is a world in grave danger. This world, she explains, suffers under the rule of the demon lord and is on the brink of extinction. She tells them that they are being summoned to this world to save humanity and prevent its annihilation. She then presents them with a choice. If they accept the mission, they should select transfer and prepare to enter this new world where their fate and the fate of humanity will be decided. As the atmosphere remains charged with anticipation, suddenly, the Sword Saint appears, soaring through the sky with remarkable speed and grace. He lands effortlessly atop a tall building, drawing the eyes of everyone in the crowd. Without hesitation, the Sword Saint is the first to choose transfer, signaling his acceptance of the mission and the impending journey to the new world. His decisive move encourages others, and one by one, more participants follow suit, selecting transfer as well. The lady, still floating in the air, watches as the others choose to join the mission. She then speaks again, her voice carrying an air of authority. She explains that those who move from the 11th floor to the 12th floor will undergo a trial, a test of their faith. It is here that they will discover who they truly are, a journey of self-realization that will shape their futures. The answers they find on the 12th floor will be crucial in understanding their own purpose, serving as a constant reminder of their true nature and destiny. In the midst of the growing excitement, a lady, one of the guild leaders who had previously been part of the discussions with Gongja, approaches him. Her armor, bulky and designed for battle, makes her appear more like a man than a woman, which causes Gongja to briefly wonder about her identity. She approaches him under the guise of discussing the tower and its challenges, but the guardian spirit senses something amiss. The tension is palpable, as if there is more to her intentions than meets the eye. The lady, having fulfilled her covert mission, subtly draws the attention of the media and news reporters to Gongja. The crowd quickly turns, and whispers spread like wildfire. It doesn't take long for everyone to realize that Gongja is the one who cleared the 10th floor. The revelation sends ripples through the gathering as they begin to take notice of his presence. Gongja, however, remains calm amidst the chaos. He knows the media is about to bombard him with questions, but he decides not to get bogged down in the spectacle. Instead of engaging deeply, he simply replies to the reporters with a vague yet encouraging statement: "Everyone should work hard." His words are simple, but resonate with the crowd. Not wanting to linger any longer, Gongja selects the transfer option and heads toward the 11th floor. The reporters, eager for more answers, try to press him further, but Gongja doesn't wait. Upon arriving at the 11th floor, Gongja is met with an overwhelming sight. Countless hunters fill the area, each exuding either confidence or uncertainty. It quickly becomes clear that the 11th floor is unlike anything they have encountered before. The sheer presence of powerful hunters, including the Sword Saint, who looks visibly confused by the crowded scene, signals that this stage will be far from ordinary, presenting challenges even the most seasoned warriors may struggle to navigate. Confusion ripples through the hunters. The Sword Saint, usually a symbol of unwavering confidence, finds himself questioning the situation. Gongja, however, remains calm and steady as he steps into the fray. Little do they realize that the overwhelming presence and fierce competition they witness now will soon become a common feature in future stages, setting the tone for what lies ahead. Meanwhile, in the kingdom they have entered, the hunters learn that their mission is to defend the kingdom's port. This port is not only a strategic location, but also the kingdom's sole open trade route. The locals, including officials, express hope that the heroes destined to save humanity will aid in protecting the port from looming threats. On the surface, the task seems simple: safeguard the port from invaders to keep trade flowing and the kingdom thriving. Yet the danger proves far greater than the hunters initially anticipate. As they receive their quest details, uncertainty lingers. The hunters remain unsure of the specifics, prompting the Sword Saint, ever the leader, to take action. He begins attacking appearing monsters, assuming their role is to clear the area of threats, possibly thinking a demon king is orchestrating the assault. Witnessing his actions, the other hunters follow suit, doing their best to fend off the monsters and protect the kingdom's vital trade route. When Gongjia enters, he receives a different reception. His successful completion of the 10th floor is acknowledged, and the system rewards him for his achievement. A screen appears, announcing that he is blessed by the goddess of war, granting him access to maps for floors 11 to 20. The reward continues. A hidden stage boon appears unexpectedly, elevating his status even further. Several other goddesses bestow their blessings as well, recognizing his potential as a tower hero. Gongjia feels particularly pleased with the additional clues about the floors ahead. As he delves deeper into the tower, the thematic patterns of the floors become clear. Floors 1 through 10 serve as a tutorial phase, designed to familiarize beginners with the tower's mechanics. The environment resembles a city, with designated hunting zones for honing skills, a place to grow and prepare for greater challenges. Now stepping onto the 11th floor, Gongjia notices a dramatic thematic shift: Demon King and heroes. The stakes rise, and challenges take on a darker, more dangerous tone. With the information at hand, Gongjia quickly deduces two main strategies to confront the demon army ahead: either amass enough power to obliterate the enemy forces directly, or take a strategic approach, rallying an army for a tactical battle. The guardian spirit, always cautious, suggests the first option, fighting the monsters one by one to build strength gradually. Gongjia, however, thrives on bold moves. Confident in his skills, he sees the tower as a test of intellect and strategy, not mere luck. Rejecting the guardian spirit's advice, Gongjia commands the system to reveal the top 3 NPCs in the tower, believing these elite characters hold the key to mastering skills and tactics for the upcoming battles. He also marks their locations on the map, ensuring he can approach them directly. Gongjia understands that mastery comes not from raw power alone, but from exploiting the deeper strategies of the tower. Forming a plan, Gongjia seeks one of the top NPCs, a skilled warrior from another world, and approaches with a startling request to be killed. The NPC is bewildered, questioning why Gongjia would ask such a thing. Yet Gongjia, ever decisive, quickly fabricates a story. A secret last resort technique will trigger a blessing from the god of war upon his death, infusing the battlefield with divine power. The guardian spirit sees through the lie, but remains silent for reasons unknown. Gongjia insists that activating the blessing is essential for victory. The NPC initially refuses, unwilling to kill him. Gongjia grows desperate, warning that if the NPC does not act, he will take his own life due to the high stakes. He argues that, as the general in charge of the port, the NPC should accept Gongjia's life willingly, rather than risk losing it to the enemy. Torn but ultimately compelled, the general reluctantly complies, expressing gratitude for Gongjia's sacrifice, acknowledging that it may save them all. Gongjia dies, and the system signals the moment to copy the NPC's skills. Meanwhile, other hunters, focused on defeating monsters, pause in astonishment as they see Gongjia riding a horse alongside one of the hunters. Most do not recognize him, leaving them curious and questioning who he really is. Gongjia copies the battlefield insight skill from Egum, an NPC, gaining the qualities of an exceptional general. This B-rank skill allows him to perceive crucial aspects of the battlefield, helping him determine whether his allies have the advantage or not. It is a powerful skill capable of turning the tide of battle, granting an unparalleled awareness of the situation. Egum, the NPC Gongjia rides alongside, controls the horse while Gongjia directs their movements. Other NPCs also ride horses, but they position themselves at the front of the group. Using the battlefield insight skill strategically, Gongjia presents himself as a military expert, quickly earning the trust of the general. The skill proves even more effective when combined with the minimap and the knowledge Gongjia has gained from repeating his deaths, sharpening his understanding of the battlefield. As they advance, they encounter a goblin that keeps fleeing. Gongjia seizes the opportunity, wielding Lefanta Egum's Holy Sword of Protection, a legendary weapon. When activated, the sword glows with a divine light, convincing everyone that it is the goddess's blessing illuminating the battlefield. In reality, the sword is the holy sword of the founder, once bestowed by the goddess herself upon the founder of the Egyptian Empire. The founder later disappeared, and the sword vanished with him, leaving only a prophecy. Whoever wields the holy sword of protection will gain the absolute trust and support of the Egyptian Empire's people. As Gongja brandishes the founder's holy sword, some in the group immediately recognize it, rejoicing. They believe that the sword's return marks divine intervention, proof that the gods have not abandoned the Egyptian Empire. Their excitement surges, seeing it as a sign of salvation for their kingdom. The guardian spirit, however, is displeased with Gongja's choice of weapon. He had hoped Gongja would enhance his own aura to lead the battle through sheer strength rather than relying on a sword. The spirit doubts the sword's effectiveness in achieving victory, but Gongja insists that his choice is strategic. Battlefield insight, combined with the holy sword, will allow him to turn the tide in their favor. Gongja's actions raise some doubts among certain groups, who question why he is the only one following the general. Others quickly recognize him as a capable leader, even speculating that he must be a hunter due to his unusual behavior. Gongja overhears the murmurs, but ignores them, attributing the remarks to jealousy. His focus remains solely on the mission. Soon, most of the NPCs join Gongja and the general, convinced that they have found a true savior. As they ride deeper into the battlefield, they encounter the Goblin Emperor, the 11th floor's boss. Gongja wastes no time. He leaps off the horse, landing precisely in front of the Goblin Emperor. Without hesitation, he activates his Goruk skill, acquired through his earlier strategic choices. As the Goblin Emperor utters the word Goruk, Gongja delivers a swift, devastating slash, defeating the boss in a single blow. The battlefield erupts in cheers. People shout in excitement, hailing him as the goddess hero who has slain the enemy leader. With the Goblin Emperor defeated, the remaining goblins are quickly dispatched by the other hunters, who clear the battlefield with ease. An announcement rings out. The 11th floor is cleared. The assessment displays the top 10 participants on the leaderboard. Gongja stands proudly at the top, recognized for his decisive contribution, followed closely by the Blood Saint. The guardian spirit watches the victory unfold, acknowledging Gongja's undeniable skill, yet he refuses to fully accept it, clinging to the belief that true power stems from inherent ability rather than cleverness or strategy. In his mind, Gongja may have exploited the situation, but the spirit is not ready to concede full respect for the hunter's capabilities. Meanwhile, the general approaches Gongja, gratitude shining in his eyes. He understands the sacrifice Gongja made and feels deeply moved. Though he has heard of heroes from other worlds, he never expected one to be so trustworthy and selfless. He thanks Gongja, acknowledging his critical role in the victory, and offers a handshake. The general's trust is genuine, and he expresses hope that this partnership will continue to benefit his people in future trials. The assessment rewards are announced. Top contributors receive early entry into the 12th floor, while all other hunters are temporarily barred. Among the top contributors are the leaders of various guilds, including the Black Witch, who had previously approached Gongja with an offer, highlighting their role in the victory. Yet it is the general's actions that stand out most. By entrusting the fate of his empire to Gongja, he places his full faith in the hero from another world. When the guardian spirit hears that only the top 10 will be summoned first, he becomes worried. He fears that Marcus, the sword saint, might see Gongja among them and try to kill him. But Gongja reassures the spirit, confident that he has a plan. He knows the worst-case scenario could involve Marcus attacking him, but he feels ready for whatever happens next. On the 12th floor, Gongja is approached by a guild leader, a woman who praises him for his performance on the previous floor. She congratulates him, clearly impressed. Their conversation is interrupted when Marcus suddenly appears and tries to kill Gongja. The woman steps forward to block him, shocked at his sudden aggression. Marcus says he only needs to kill Gongja and threatens to cut off her arm if she keeps interfering. She stands firm, saying her arm is important, but she cannot let him kill Gongja. She understands that Gongja is vital for the survival of the guilds, especially the Great Five, and his death would bring disaster. Other guild leaders see the fight and try to help, but Marcus is far too strong. Some even wonder how someone his age can be this powerful. He shows no sign of backing down, though he doesn't explain why he wants Gongja dead. The woman tries to use her god of teleportation skill to gain the upper hand, but she realizes she needs 10,000 gold to activate it. She turns to the Countess for the money, but the Countess hesitates and won't just give it to her. After negotiating, she manages to secure the funds and activates the holy technique. Feeling a surge of power, she faces Marcus and reminds him of the deal with Gong Jia. If he wants to attack Gong Jia, he must first face them, and even the legendary Sword Saint may not defeat all 5 of them. This is part of Gong Jia's larger plan. He had earlier told the Guardian Spirit to either grow strong enough to fight the strongest opponent or gather an army capable of defeating him. In this case, his army consists of the 5 guild leaders, each powerful, forming a strong defense against Marcus. Later, Gong Jia approaches Marcus, claiming to be a fan of the Sword Saint and hoping to talk. Marcus ignores him, instantly assuming Gong Jia is an assassin from the Black Dragon. He draws his sword and attacks. Gong Jia dodges easily, making Marcus even more suspicious. Marcus now thinks Gong Jia must be an extraordinary assassin, capable of avoiding even a legendary fighter's sword. As the fight continues, Marcus begins to see Gong Jia as a deadly force, someone with many kills and a serious threat, not just a rival. If you enjoyed watching Kim Gong Jia outsmart enemies, wield legendary weapons, and rise to the top of the tower from being nothing, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more epic recaps. Comment below which part of Gong Jia's journey shocked you the most. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss more engaging recaps like this.